Another set of balance changes are coming to Clash of Clans. In fact, by the time that you guys see this video, they might already be in game because the maintenance update might be over. On top of that, we're getting changes to difficulty modifiers and we're going to have exact numbers, and in fact, these will also be in game likely by the time you're watching this video. So to avoid any more time wasting, let's go ahead and get right into covering this patch. Let's start with the difficulty modifiers first for the leagues. The old esports modifiers have not been modified at all. They are going to stay the way that they are. The Legend League modifier has been reduced from 20% defensive strength to 15% bonus for the defenses. The defending hero bonus has been reduced from 20% to 15% as well, and the offensive hero penalty has been reduced from 10% to 5%. In Masters or Electro 33 League, both the bonus defensive damage as well as the defensive hero bonus has been reduced from 14% to 10%, and the offensive hero penalty has been reduced from 6% to 0%. Next up, in the Expert difficulty or Electro 32 League, the defensive damage has been reduced from 7 to 5%, same with the defending hero bonus, and the offensive hero penalty is again going to be 0%. This is going to make these leagues a lot easier, and for a lot of you who have been struggling with attacking or trying to handle all of these modifiers, this should be a lot easier than before. We do know from the latest communication from Clash of Clans that literally came out like a day or so ago that we are going to get adjusting percentages for promotion and demotion, but we do not have any of that information right now, and as far as I know, that is not going to come in this update. To start things off with the buffs and the nerfs, you have the Giant Gauntlet, which is receiving a pretty big buff during this patch. First of all, its damage reduction per ability level is going up, and at max level is going to have a maximum damage reduction of 60% once again. This is the original damage reduction that it had when it first came out, and this is actually pretty big. For example, with the 55% damage reduction, the effective hit point increase of the King is 222%, but with the 60% reduction, the effective hit point increase is about 250%. So low-key, this is a pretty big difference, but another big change to this ability is going to be the duration, which is going to get an increase. The duration is going to increase at all levels until it hits its maximum duration at 19 seconds. This is a pretty big buff to the Giant Gauntlet, and I'm genuinely curious to see how it does on the outsides of the base, especially when you pair it against or you pair it with the Snake Bracelet. Next up, we have the Noble Iron, which is also going to be receiving a buff in 3 different aspects. The first is going to be the range of the shot that it shoots. It's going to be increasing by level, but at max level, you're going to get up to 12 range. It is also going to be increasing the number of shots that is going to get all the way up to 10 shots at maximum level. And last but not least, it's also going to get a 1% increase across the board when it comes to the attack speed increase for the Minion Prince. This is a pretty big buff in my opinion, but the question becomes, how does this compare to the most similar equipment there is, the Rocket Spear? The Rocket Spear has 980 extra damage with a range of 10 tiles and an attack count of 10 shots, and the Noble Iron has 770 extra damage with a range of 12 tiles and an attack count of 10 shots. So it looks like the Rocket Spear just does more damage at less of a range, right? Well, not exactly. Remember that the Minion Prince and the Royal Champion do different damages themselves at base. The Minion Prince does 765 damage at max level, while the Royal Champion only does 575. When you account for both of these, the Rocket Spear does 1555 damage per shot, while the Noble Iron does 1535 damage per shot, so there's only a difference of 20 damage. So this is definitely comparable. In fact, in some cases you might even consider it better because it has a longer range, and I'm really excited to see how players end up using potentially both of these equipments together when the Minion Prince is paired with something like the Angry Jelly. Next up, we have the Meteor Golem, and I think nobody is going to be surprised to hear that they are going to get nerfed, and it's going to receive a pretty big nerf to both its hit points and its DPS at all levels, and this is due to the fact that people were using it and it's doing extremely well consistently. I think none of us are going to be surprised by this change. I think a lot of us are going to be expecting a little bit more variety in the meta, and that's definitely what I'm hoping for as well. Next up, we have our first defense, and that is going to be the Ricochet Cannon, and it is going to be receiving a nerf. I think this is a really good change as the Ricochet Cannon was very strong. I lost my Warden and a ton of my heroes to it frequently. It's going to receive a nerf where the second shot, the bounce shot from the Ricochet Cannon, is not going to do 100% damage. Instead, it's going to do 70% damage compared to the first shot. Furthermore, the radius of that second shot is going to decrease, so you're only going to get a ricochet if it's within 3.5 radius now instead of the 4.5 that it was earlier. And remember that we are talking about radius, so when it comes to the area of a circle, this is actually close to a 40% area nerf. Next up, we have the Multi-Archer Tower, which is going to be receiving a buff during this patch. The attack speed of the Multi-Archer Tower is going to be increasing by about 20% of what it originally was. I I think this is a fine change. I mean, the multi-archer tower was okay. It wasn't super strong like the Ricochet Cannon. Next up, we have everybody's favorite, the Revenge Tower, which is going to be receiving a nerf. First off, the number of buildings that need to be destroyed to activate level 2 and level 3 of the tower is going to increase. At level 2, you used to require only 20 buildings, but now you're going to require 25. And at level 3, you used to require 40 buildings, but now you're going to require 50 buildings to be destroyed. Remember, that's about half the base, so it's a pretty good grace period for the Revenge Tower. Now, that may not seem like a lot initially. I mean, it's just 50 milliseconds, but before, the Revenge Tower used to shoot every 300 milliseconds, so this is a pretty big difference. Next up, we have the Multi-Gear Tower Long Range, which is going to be receiving a buff. The DPS of the Multi-Gear Tower at each level is going to increase, and that is going to allow it to become more viable compared to the short range version. Speaking of the short range version, the Multi-Gear Tower Short Range is going to get nerfed, and it is going to have its damage per hit reduced, and this is going to draw a little bit more of a balance between the long and the short range. Next up, we have the Builder Hut, which is actually going to be receiving a nerf. If you asked me 2 years ago about which defenses would get nerfed, I definitely would not have said the Builder Hut, but I'm actually kind of happy that this nerf is coming. Basically, the movement speed of the builder when it's going to heal whatever building you have is going to get reduced by 8, and this is going to allow it so that buildings do not get healed up too quickly. And if any of you have tried to Earthquake and Fireball before and you just simply did not get whatever building you did, even though you took the right amount of spells, you're going to be happy about this. This is basically the reason why we weren't getting those buildings. Next up, we have the Poison Lizard, which is going to be receiving a buff across all of its levels. First off, it's going to be receiving a buff to its range. It's going to get 1 additional range, so it's not going to be able to get in front of the hero as much and get shredded. Next, it's going to get a hit point boost at every single one of its levels, and that can be summarized in this chart right here if you guys are really curious about it. Next up, we have the Super Archer, which is going to be receiving a buff. Now, this is a little interesting for sure, right? Because we know that we had Super Archer blimps in the past, so are they going to become viable again? The buff itself is basically a small, moderate amount of hit points that is going to increase at all levels, so it's interesting to see whether or not this is going to be enough. However, we're definitely going to be testing blimps with the Super Wizard, which is going to be receiving a huge buff. The Super Wizard is going to be completely buffed when it comes to hit points, and it's getting close to 40% of its hit points on a ton of levels. So we'll have to see whether or not the Super Wizard and the Super Archers are going to be viable in blimps anymore. They were too squishy before, but this is a lot of hit points. Next up, we have the Giant, which is going to be receiving a bit of a nerf, but it's kind of confusing. It's also a bit of a buff. And what I mean by this is basically the healers will now target the Giant a lot less over the heroes. So your Giant that you're spawning with your equipment, for example, is not going to pull your healers as much. And technically that is a nerf to the Giant, but it's a buff to your overall attack strategy in my opinion. So this is a good change. Next up, we have the Super Minions, which are going to be receiving a bit of a buff. First off, their long range shot is going to increase from 7 to 8 shots. So you're going to have 1 more. And on top of that, their range is going to increase from 10 tiles to 10.25 tiles. And this is interesting because I believe the air defense is going to have a range of 10 tiles. So this is clearly done so that it can outrange air defenses, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not this makes a big difference. Next up, we have Throwers, which are going to receive a huge buff, believe it or not. They're going to get a buff to their hit points across many levels as well as their damage per second. What's really interesting though is that the movement speed is going to get buffed. So it's going to go from 16 movement speed to 18 movement speed. And I think this is a great change because they're generally considered slow through the base. I've heard recently that Throwers have become really good, and with this Meteor Golem nerf, I'm definitely going to be trying Throwers out in all of my ranked leagues. Next up, we have the Electro Titan, which is going to be receiving yet another buff, and it is going to get 300 more hit points at level 4, which is the Town Hall 17 level. Now that's it for the buffs and the nerfs, but there's something else in the game that you guys should know everything about, and that is those trader deals that we have right now, because some of these deals seem very enticing, but they might not be as good as you initially think. That's why you need to check out this video right here, where I break down all of the trader deals and tell you which ones are the best ones to get so that you guys don't get scammed out of your gems.